Alright, so to get started with the general protocol, we're gonna make sure we reduce everything down by exactly 1.5 millimeters. So on the ridges, everything's gonna be down 1.5 millimeters because there's an issue sometimes when you're reducing up here. You tend to just flatten everything out because you're just dropping exactly 1.5, but you end up over reducing here and then under reducing here. So I'll show you some the way I do it. And then same here, this is basically flat. This is one flat plane. This is another flat plane with this little ridge that goes right through the center. And then same thing here, you drop 1.5 and then 1.5 on both sides, and then 1.5 lingual. Using the 857 for here, you're going to angle it this way. It's going to be hard inside the mouth because you have the cheek and everything, but just get used to it. It's going to look like this when you're coming in from the mouth, right? Like this, and then you angle it this way, so you could get the proper angulation on that cusp. And then for here, you just go flat, 1.5, 1.5. So we're gonna get started by drilling at the peaks. So I'm gonna drill here at this peak, and then here at this peak, basically touching this lower cusp here on the floor, right? Basically up to that depth, 1.5 in, 1.5 in, and then we're gonna mark it with a pencil so we know that's where the peak is. Because once we drop this ridge here and then this here, it's going to be hard to tell where the peaks are. Okay, so I finished the general reduction and I marked it with my pencil. And as we can verify with here, not really needed because we just finished with the drill that's exactly 1.5 millimeters. But just to double check, pop it in and boom, exactly 1.5 and boom, exactly 1.5. Well, slightly less on both of them, but that's purposeful because once we drop here and connect the two, we're going to actually drop slightly lower. So don't actually go the full depth of the burr. And then plus we're going to refine it at the very end just to keep it around the 1.5 or exactly on that 1.5. And now we're going to drill right here in the center, drop it down, and then drill on the two sides of the cusps. You could kind of skip out on this one here for now because when you do your cut like that, it's going to make it easier to refine the occlusal. But I'll do it anyways just to give you an idea. All right. So now we are basically done with the general cut, and you can see how this one's higher than these two. That's how I want it, because now we're going to unite them by cutting off these little ledges. So see, none of them are exactly 1.5, but as we equalize them, they will drop to exactly 1.5. Remember, see, I slightly stopped slightly before. Or in this case, it was right on it, but it's going to match. So now I am done with my buccal reduction, and you can see I put my 1.5 and run it across, and it's exactly 1.5 all across. No matter where you put it, exactly 1.5. We can still reduce this down and refine it a little bit because of course it's a little ugly and I went fast, blah, blah, blah. But if we put it like this, you see you have your peaks perfectly recreated. They're just reduced down. This over here is just because I went a little bit too high. I left a little thing there, but that's going to be refined once we drop the lingual down. We're going to put the putty after and verify. Now with the putty in, it literally slides in just perfect. And it stops when you touch the other cusp, which is fine. If you put your facial putty in and do the same, it should slide in all the way in perfectly. So same thing. So always verify with the putty, but this also really helps to make sure you don't over or underdo it. It just streamlines the process. And it gives you a really nice cusp anatomy. For the lingual cusp, same exact thing, very rough, very aggressive. Drop it down exactly 1.5, or roughly around 1.5. It's going to be a little less because I like to keep it slightly less, see, for refinement. And then now we're going to take the same burr and then angle it like this to kind of cut this part off. And then we're going to angle it slightly more like this to get this ridge done properly. So first cut is just intersecting. And then the second cut is going to swipe, or how do you call it? Sweep. And then you're going to do another sweep and this angulation just far back. See, so you go whoop and then sweep. You will know you reach the proper depth because this, remember this thing we formed here, this wall, is going to disappear. And it kind of just merges with these two cusps. It just becomes a flat plane that kind of merges to the cusp. See? And then it also merges with this part right here. where we did the initial cut, they kind of just merge and become like one plane. That's exactly how it should be. And that's how you know you're at the perfect depth. And you basically, the putty's going to give you 100% right when you put it on. So now it's done, refined, and now we're going to move on to this one, and then we're going to refine the whole occlusal surface at the end. Be careful with this depth cut. It doesn't always go all the way down the full depth. You're going to have to eventually merge these little two. It should be higher than this one, because you see it is physically higher than this one. So you're not going to go down to the same depth as here. You're going to verify by just going to the side and making sure it's in. I'm already around 1.5. I'm comfortable where I'm at, right? See, around 1.5. Once you refine it, it's going to drop down more. But if you go further, then they're going to be the same level. And that's literally it. You see here the little step. It's perfect, around 1 millimeter high. And now when we put the putty, we're going to see it should fit perfect. All right. And then let's slide in an RGS. And it slides in. Oh, top it a bit. I could maybe cut a little more, but it's sliding for the most part. I'll refine it more, but I'm not going to be aggressive with my refinement. I'm going to switch over to my low speed and go over to the blunted one and then to the sharp. And I'm going to use the sharp beak to kind of define these little valleys here. And then this one here too. This gives you a very nice cut. And then same thing in here. Once you get your wall done, don't forget this little sliver that goes like that. Alright, so that's basically it. And how it should look. Just make sure to just smooth things out. There's a little thingy here sticking out. Here it's not super smooth. Same with here. But honestly, this would be a pass. I see no issue with it. Did my little relief right here, or the little groove, whatever it's called. This does look huge right now, but that's because I haven't reduced lingual. Once you reduce lingual and you do your A-B planes, this is going to cut down to around here. So it's going to look a lot smaller. I'm not even going to bother with this one. It's basically the same technique. You cut down the line first, draw it. Same here, drop 1.5, drop 1.5, and then you unite the two, and you have your little cusps. And you see they're basically at the same level as this tooth. They're just dropped. And same thing here, just dropped. You didn't change the anatomy, nothing's different. It's just lower. After refinement, now this slides in. See? Could still go for a little more, but I was being too conservative at the beginning. But you get the general idea, right? And that's how you have good cusps. Still too tight, but this would be within the allowable limits. Okay, so slight reiteration. Lower limit is up to 1 millimeter. So if we use the RGS3, it's perfect. This will slide in day and night, no issue. See? Perfect slide. But I do go for the goal of 1.5. Doesn't really matter too much for a metal crown like this. But I mean it fits a little perfectionist sometimes. It fits if you're careful. If you go at any odd angle, it won't. Right? But one millimeter, like the lower limit is. So for the crown prep, I was actually blessed in having this section be the easy one for me. Surprisingly, endo's the one that bit me. But the biggest tip I can say is basically just focus on the occlusal and make sure everything's matching up to the putty, that you have the proper spacing, reduction, etc. The taper, easy to overthink. Just keep it basically parallel. Unless you're using a burr that has no taper, that's going to provide the proper, how do you call it, line of draw, or the proper taper for the actual tooth, right? Unless you're using a burr, obviously, that's straight, for doing your chamfer, your feather edge, whatever, or the shoulder on the PFM. For there, you do have to use basically a flat tip burr. I'm not really sure about the numbers. As long as it's slightly tapered and the bottom's flat, so you can get your shoulder done. Make sure to focus on that little line. You could do wings. I did wings. Works fine. Just blend it nice and smooth on your margin where it changes to the chamfer or the feather edge or whatever. And then for the incisor, that's literally the easiest one. Perfect view. Basically, don't even have to use your mirror. Just be careful when you're reducing the cingulum. That's the part where you should focus a good amount of time. And I generally start off by reducing my margins there, and then I hit the cingulum, because if you hit your cingulum, you could drop it too low, and then you don't have that, I think it's 1 to 1.5 millimeter height that you need on the lingual wall. So I would work first by defining my margin, and that in turn defines your lingual wall. And then you proceed to reduce your cingulum by doing a depth cut with the same burr that you used for doing the margin, which in my case is around 1 millimeter in width. So that's perfect for your cingulum. And then you go with the football or whatever equivalent burr you have and take care of your cingulum. And I generally divide into 2 hemispheres when I'm preparing those. And that gave me pretty good results, basically excellent results. So I really don't have a template for this. I'm just talking as I build this video for you guys. Look at the other videos. I'm going to post one on the anterior teeth, I believe. I need to double check with some more tips. You could check that out. It's literally the same exact technique I use for the anterior, I use for the posterior teeth. Only difference is just changing the margin, which is pretty much it. Just keep in mind that facial for the PFM, the thinnest one is going to be the molar, so you don't have to reduce that much. That's basically it, because the occlusal for the 2 molars are going to be the same. The incisal is just keeping in mind that when you reduce the 2 walls, you're also going to reduce the incisal edge. So don't focus too much on the initial reduction there, because eventually you're going to have to chop it off anyways. Over reducing is worse than under in that case. So one other thing, if you can see on the image on the screen, because I added that super last minute, retroactively adding stuff to this video. Anyways, those lines are my line of draw. You can tell they're slightly more parallel on when it comes to where the missing tooth is. And as they get away from there, they become more convergent towards that missing tooth for the bridge. And this is going to This is going to make sure that you don't have an undercut at the distal of the premolar or the mesial of the molar, which would be an immediate fail. And it also ensures that you have the proper taper set. So when you're starting to cut, you basically have the burr pretty parallel towards the mesial of that molar. And then as you start going towards the back of the tooth, you start inclining slightly. And of course, keep in mind, does your burr have taper already? Are you using a straight burr and just finishing the margins or whatever? Because that's going to give you different results depending on your angulation. And yeah, so it's just keeping that stuff in mind. Always keep in mind what burr you're using, if it's tapered, if it's not. That makes a huge difference. And it's really easy to just overlook it. And then when you double check, you're under tapered or over tapered, or you simply have an undercut. And you start panicking and fixing stuff, and in reality, you're just making it worse for yourself.